Hey folks, and welcome to week number 5. Okay, so this week we're going to get into essay number 2, the essay 2 assignment. Reading that assignment and actually starting to do work on it is part of what we've got going on this week. So, long list, lots of small parts this week. So, we're going to read the essay 2 assignment. That's due in early October here. Again, these essays will always begin with the beginning of the unit and end at the end of the unit, or like the very first beginning of the next unit. That'll sort of depend on the how I structure peer review and those sorts of things. I want you to read an article called "Those Studies Showing Alcohol is Good for You." We'll talk about that in just a second. Watch the Meet Your Librarian video. Watch Looking for Scholarly Articles video. Find 2 scholarly articles for Essay 2, and then write and submit annotations of those 2 scholarly articles for Essay 2. Now, I want to go down and talk about this, and then I'm going to come back up and talk about Thursday's work. All right, so we're going to get down here. Obviously, the Week 5 video. You're watching that right now. Everything for Monday is in that Essay 2 folder. So, the assignment, the article I want you to read, okay? Welcome from Professor Moore, librarian. She's a librarian who's going to be dedicated to our class. She'll work with us all semester long, and you might want to make use of her for this essay in terms of trying to find scholarly articles for it. Let's go ahead and take a look at that essay assignment. I think all of this will become a little bit clearer. Okay, so 1,000 to 1,500 words. It's about the same length as the first essay, 12-point font. Probably 2 sources here. There might be more. I'll talk about how you might end up with more in a moment. So, essay 1 really focused on this idea that the first step in the information literacy process is to realize that what we've got in sources on the internet is at least dubious. That doesn't mean it's bad. It doesn't mean it's wrong. It doesn't mean it's inaccurate. It means there's probably a better source out there. Okay? In some cases, popular pieces are better sources. However, if it comes to something that really requires an experiment, that requires study, we want to get to that scholarly research. Typically, then students, when they're doing research, will just click the scholarly sources box in one search and then say, okay, well, we're good to go. And then presume that whatever comes up is fine. But even scholarly articles can be problematic. And scholarly articles are only as good as the work that goes into them. Okay? And often, different studies on the same subject end up coming to different conclusions. And we saw this last week with Fowler and Peters' pieces. Okay? They are both about diet soda and its impact on weight gain or weight loss, and they come to opposing conclusions. What do we do then if that happens? That's the real question. Okay, so that's a little bit of background. The assignment. For Essay 2, I want you to find 2 scholarly studies that are looking at the same thing. Okay, you can use your scholarly article from Essay 1 as one of those 2. Remember, we looked at a popular and a scholarly study. Popular article and scholarly study for Essay 1. You can use that scholarly study if you'd like, but it just means you need to find a second one. And when I say same thing, it really means that. They need to look at the same aspect of a topic. Theoretically, they should be trying to answer the same question. Okay, the 2 studies you read on diet soda attempt to answer that same question. Good example of a pair of articles on the same topic. Once you've got 2 articles, your goal is to figure out which one is stronger, how they differ, or what we as a general public should take away from the 2 results. When I think about this in terms of those diet soda articles, what would we take away if we've read these 2 articles and we come to different conclusions? Okay, what is a person supposed to do? Okay, your 2 articles don't have to disagree. Even if they come to similar conclusions, they're going to come to slightly different conclusions. And one of the goals here is to then try to, again, figure out what the takeaway is. What we can say about this question and the answer to this question, given the data that we've got in front of us. Okay. In order to do that, you can consider the author's background, the journal in which it was published, statements, possible conflict of interest, the study design, and next week we will actually work on a lot of learning how to do these things. You might need to do some research for this on the author, the journal, or conflict of interest. So this is why you might end up with additional sources, but it's not going to be the type of research paper you wrote in high school. This is still an analytical piece. We're comparing these 2 studies and trying to figure out what we take away from their differing results, okay? And again, you don't have to find ones that just blatantly disagree like the diet soda studies do, but you might find some that disagree in a smaller way or come to different conclusions, right? Sometimes you'll get two articles and one will show a really strong correlation between two things. The other one shows a kind of a weak correlation. Like it's there, but it doesn't have a huge impact, okay? Those two are disagreeing in a way, and that's still suitable for this paper. Now, this article, and it's a quick article, it's a quick read, it's not a complicated one. It's just, I think, a New York Times article here, really kind of gets to the heart of why we're actually doing this. The mechanisms for funding scholarly studies can change the outcomes of those studies, okay? It just gives you an idea of what we want to be thinking about here. And again, like I said, you might want to consult with our librarian here about finding those two articles. I am more than willing to help. We can do a Google Meet, screen share, go through the database. There's an article here on how to do it, but Professor Moore will also be willing to sit down and help you do this. First thing to do, find those two articles and write annotations of them. That's our work for Monday, okay? Now, let's kind of talk about Thursday. Hey, folks, so Thursday, okay? Let's take a look at Thursday. So number one, I want you to check your Essay 1 feedback. Complete your Essay 1 reflection, sort of part 2 of this. I actually call it down below, your game plan for Essay 1. And I'll talk about that in a second. I want you to continue your research discussion. In this case, that should be continued in the discussion board. Again, I'll talk about that in a second. And then complete your study analysis instruction, your study analysis activity, and then look at the proposal template, sample proposal, and submit your Essay 2 proposal. Let's go ahead and go down and take a look at all of this, okay? I'm going to close the Essay 2 folder. That's Monday's stuff. So the Essay 1 reflection, this is just a quick tutorial on how to view feedback in D2L. So if you haven't, for any reason, viewed your feedback already on an earlier assignment, it'll show you how to see the feedback in D2L, as well as how to read the rubrics that I use to grade. And then the game plan document. Now, what we want you to do here, if you go back to last week, there is a Google Doc, right? You made a copy of it and you filled in a couple things last week. Now, that document, okay, looks like this, right? You guys did this last week. You identified what you thought your strengths and weaknesses were after you completed writing Essay 1. Now you should have Essay 1 back and in your possession, okay? And if you don't have that at the beginning of this week, it will come out middle of the week, so you'll have time to do this for, the end of this week. You should have identified a bunch of things that you thought were good about your essay and things that were weak about your essay. What I want you to do is add to this list, okay? In other words, go in and add things that I noted when I graded your essay that were strengths, things that I noted that were weaknesses. If there were things I didn't necessarily note as a strength, or if you said it was a strength and I said it was a weakness, one thing you can do is just highlight here, okay? And then format, text, you can put something in called Strikethrough. So it'll show that it was there, but you crossed it out, okay? That'll sort of allow you over the course of the semester to track the things. Our goal over the course of the semester, of course, is to see fewer weaknesses and more strengths, okay? So if I said, hey, you did a really great job on this and you actually thought you hadn't, you can come over here, number 1, copy it. You can paste it over on your strength side because I gave you a, hey, this was a good strength. And then you can come over here, okay? And again, format, text, Strikethrough, and you can mark it as kind of checked off your weakness list. The other thing I want you to do this week is to basically write sort of a list of things you need to do for Essay 2. Okay, things you need to work on that can kind of come off your weaknesses list, come off the comments I gave you. What do you need to do on Essay 2 in order to do better than you did on this essay? And then finally, I just want you to write a quick paragraph of reflection. How do you feel about where your writing is right now? What are you worried about? What do you want to do? Okay, so you'll see there's also going to be slots. Like I said, we're going to use this document all semester long. Whoops. You're going to use this document all semester long. So what I want you to do, again, add to the strengths and weaknesses, explain what you need to do with Essay 2 in order to improve, on your next essay, and then reflect on essay 1 a little bit, how you feel about it, what you want to do differently. I'll note after that, file, okay, download, Microsoft Word format, PDF, doesn't matter, one of those two, and download it so that you can submit it again. This is good self-reflection for you. It's also pretty much the easiest way for you to earn homework points, because each one of these is a homework assignment. We're going to use this every time we write an essay. Okay, scholarly article analysis. What we've got here, okay, there are 3 different web pages, one on study design, one on authorial background and conflict, and one on journal background. Those will kind of walk you through how to assess for study design, how to assess for authorial background and conflict, how to assess what a journal's background is, what we know about the journal. Okay, and then using the 2 articles that you picked out on Monday or by Monday for essay 2, I want you to start working on this grid. There's a template here, but this is ultimately what it's going to look like. Okay, you're going to put a citation for each of the 2 articles on the top, and then kind of fill in, using the information that you have gleaned from these studies, all the things here. Again, this is about starting to try to understand how it is they came to the conclusions they came to, and what ultimately we can take away from those. I tried to be very specific in this sample, and you'll see this ties back into the sample here, ties into those diet soda articles that we looked at last week, and that we are still discussing in the discussion this week. If we go back, again, there are these 3 web pages. Please go through them, click through the links, read the stuff that's on them, watch any videos that are in them, etc., etc., etc. Okay. This is just a Word document of that template that you can download, and then a place to submit it. Okay. So you're going to create a grid just like this sample one for the 2 articles that 2 scholarly studies that you're using for essay 2. Finally, the research discussion, round number 2. Last week, you guys were working in a Google Doc, trying to sort of identify in there, again, using this same grid. This grid should look pretty familiar, right? We're using it on the diet soda articles as a group this past week. It's the grid that looks like this. Okay, what we want to do at this point is start working in a discussion, okay? Trying to answer this question. What differed about their studies such that they came to such different conclusions? Why? Why did their studies disagree? What was it specifically about the way they structured their work that resulted in different findings? Okay? Ultimately, then, we want to think about sort of like, well, what's our takeaway? Look for my comments in there. Again, you're going to use the discussion board for that this time. Okay, so that's everything. It's going to be a pretty busy week. If there's anything I can do to help along the way, please don't hesitate to reach out.